Now, this is something that's going to blow your mind. Together, Susan Mallery, Christine Rimmer, and Rochelle Allers have written more than 300 books for Harlequin.
Oh, wow.
A #1 New York Times bestselling author, Susan returns to special edition on April 27th with Before Summer Ends. Christine Rimmer, who is also a New York Times bestselling author, releases her newest romance, The Last One Home, on that same date. And on March 30th, you'll be able to enjoy A New Foundation by award-winning author Rochelle Allers. Can you tell us a little bit about how you started writing?
Yeah, I always wanted to be a good actress. That was my dream. And so I got a theater degree. And then I took my Volkswagen and my cat and my first husband and drove across the country to be a stage actress in New York City. That was a change. I was from Sacramento. And I learned to wait tables there. And I was in 3 or 4 very far off Broadway productions. And then I said, not working, moved to LA, tried to be a playwright, no money. And I was thinking, I just want to hang up my duty shoes and write. What could I write that everybody might read? And, looked in my lap and there was a Harlequin Presents. I said, okay. So I wrote my first book. It was a temptation, Harlequin Temptation. And I said it, and then moved to Desire. And then when I moved to Specials, it was just it was pretty much
excuse me,
because I like a lot of extra characters, and then I might take one and put it in another book. And I like the community aspect a lot.
Well, that's just so interesting. Mine is really boring. I was in college studying to be an accountant, and I saw a class on how to write a romance novel, and I've been reading romance for years. And I decided to take the class, so I started a book, and it was 8-week class. In week 6, it was like, okay, not so much with the accounting. This is what I want to do. And that was it. I graduated in May. I sold my first book in August. I sold my second book, which was a special edition, in January of the following year. And I was thinking, because I was awake last night at 2:30 in the morning, I have been published. I have been under contract with Harlequin since I graduated from college. We won't say when, but a very long time ago.
And we're very grateful that you have been. Rochelle, how did you start your writing career?
I was bored out of my skull. I was home with a new baby. And, I was so used to working. So, after I had the baby, I'd stopped working for about 4 years. And one day I walked into a Woolworth, which no longer exists, and I picked up a silhouette romance. And I realized there's 6 of these little books, and then they were numbered. So I went back and got all of them, and I started reading them, and I would spend my time reading these books. And I think I must have read about 200 of them. And I said, oh, this is so easy. And I didn't realize the formula. And then I decided, I can write one of these, not realizing how difficult it is to write to a formula. But after a while, I hit pay dirt, and I met an editor, and she decided she was going to pick up my book, and started from there. I think it was 1988 was the first one, 1991 was the second one, and then 1994, then I was on a roll.
Yeah.
You guys remember your first sales call?
Yeah.
I went blank. I was in my office, and I just went blank, and the guy that was in the office with me, he thought I had a seizure. I hung up, and I said, oh my God, I got to call her back. I got to call her back. It was, I went into another zone just for a few minutes. And then it finally dawned on me, okay, somebody wanted this. This is like Sally Fields. You like me.
Christine, what was your experience?
I just remember I lived in this tiny house in Long Beach, California, like a little cottage, and I had the phone in the hallway, it was a phone, a regular plug-in phone, and I got the call, a very nice editor from Temptation, and she said, we would like to buy your book. I said, could you just hold on for a minute? And she went, yeah, cool. And I put the phone down and I ran around that little house like 4 times going, not screaming out loud because I didn't want her to hear how uncool I was, but in heaven, it was great.
And Susan, did you get the call? Did you?
I did. I didn't have an agent, but I was having lunch with a girlfriend. It's LA. I also lived in LA, and a 3-hour time difference. And I remember we were sitting at the Marie Callender's, and I was whining about how I was never going to sell, and I was so upset. And I did not get home till after 2:00, and there was a voice. We had answering machines back then.
Yes.
And it said, "You're just going to be so sorry you missed this call." And I called back and she was gone. And I had to wait the entire night.
Oh.
And at 6:05 in the morning, which was 9:05, I called, and thank God she was at her desk. But yeah, it was, and it's all because I was whiny. If I had had a normal lunch and been home when I was supposed to be, I would have been there to get the call.
Susan, let's start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about Before Summer Ends? What really inspired you to write the novel?
But when I had the opportunity to write this, I thought, what are my favorite romance tropes that I really like to do? And one of my favorite stories is Friends to Lovers. I just think that one, there is something wonderful about you meet a stranger, you fall in love, it's super hot and all of that. But I also like the fact that if you're friends first, you kind of know it's going to be okay because they've been friends for a really long time. And he's probably a good guy and he's going to take care of her. And I just really like that. So that's really where I started. And I kind of don't want to say a whole bunch about it because there's some surprises in the book, but it is basically a friends to lovers story.
So I'm wondering if you can share the role that you think secondary characters play in romance novels, and what does that allow you to do?
Well, the thing I do love about specials is that it's the heroine kind of finding love in community. So the secondary characters really do matter here. Like it could be you have her confidants, you have her sisters, her brothers, you have her exes who might find love with somebody else, and they enrich her life and they can teach her things that she wouldn't know by herself, and him, especially him. Originally, Finn, the main character in this book, actually his name is now Ian because he forgot who he was for about 20 years. I invented him at the beginning of the series, and my idea was I'm gonna then bring him in. He's going to be the culminating book. Well, I got toward the culminating book and I was actually talking to Susan, and I said, well, I think I'll just wait till I can figure out what I'm going to do with this, and she said, no, honey, you're not doing that. The readers will not like that. So, that got me thinking, and we started talking, and I really figured out a good story for him. But often it's a lot of it's waiting for the character to be, that sounds funny, like they're really alive, but it's that way. It's like they really have to grow in you. You have to get to know them better before they're ready to have their own story.
Yes. Rochelle, are you part of any type of plot group or critique group? Or
I've never been, because I don't want someone else's opinion to have me stray from what I think I would like my characters to do or say. There was a time when I did belong to a group, and everybody had a different opinion of the what was read, and I just said, I can't do this. I'm pulled into too many different directions, and I'm going to rely on my editor just to set me straight. And it's worked. So far, it's worked after all these years.
So how do you balance those serious moments with really the right amount of romance? Because that's the romance is pivotal to your story. But your heroine in this case really does have quite a heavy backstory.
I guess the social worker came out in me in this story. Where these women have problems, but what I didn't want her to be is a victim. She was naive, and with a lot of young women, they fall in love, and they don't realize they're surrendering so much of themselves without getting anything back. And that's what happened with my heroine. And but you know, it comes a time when she has to say enough is enough. And she knew her breaking point. She had fallen in love with her professor, who was a much older man, who I felt was a predator because he went after the young girls in his class. But when she realized that she was turning into something she didn't want to be, she did escape. And, you know, it made her stronger because she knew when she did fall in love with the hero and he exhibited a little bit of that behavior, she was ready to cut it off. I mean, she was in love with him, but, you know, but he had to realize, he didn't realize what she had gone through, but she had confided in his sister, which made it much easier. But I'm kind of excited about this new series because it's 5 foster kids who grow up together. They look nothing alike, but they're so tight. They're so supportive. And, you know, it's just funny to see the different personalities, even though they were raised by these 2 people they claim were the best parents in the world. And the fact that the parents chose them makes it even more special.
Romance. And romance is my first love. That's where I started. And for a reason, it's what I read. So it's nice to just, I don't know, it's like going home, you know, for the holidays. It's like, oh, we're going to do all the stuff I used to do. Yay, I can't wait.
Do you feel that your writing has changed over the years with writing for you've written for several series, so I'm wondering if anything has changed since you started writing in terms of your process.
I'm mostly a plotter. If I don't have the whole story worked out at beginning, middle, and end, I couldn't do it. So I can't, and I know people sit down and just start writing. I'm like, ooh, don't do that. It's too scary. But I would say in over time, it's more like my characters are a little different. They're more, I want to say more depth, but I don't know if that's the word. But the men used to be really haven't got a clue alpha guys. Like they knew what was right and they knew what to do and they were wrong. And now I might have a more beta guy, which when I first started, it was like, who wants that? You know, but I don't know. It's over time you need variety, you know. And my heroines used to, the woman always used to figure out the problem, and the guy would need help. And now a lot of times it's the other way around, where the woman really needs the guy to show her the way, or a friend or something. So yeah, it's just moved around in terms of some kind of iconic role that people have. They don't have them anymore. It could work out either way.
Do you remember any of your special editions with a cover that you absolutely loved?
I think I like the Claiming the Captain's Baby, because the baby was just so cute. Twins for the Soldier. You see, I'm going with the military thing. Her Wickham's Fall Seal. That's another. The guys in uniform.
I see a pattern here.
Yeah. I've had a lot of really good ones, but one of my favorite is a book called Completely Smitten, and it makes me happy. It was my 50th book with Harlequin, and it's one of my favorite special edition stories. I love her. I love him. I love everything about their situation. She's a preacher's daughter who's run away to be bad, and she can't swear. So she just, in her head, it's the D word. One day she's going to be able to use the D word in conversation, but she's thinking this. I just love her. And it's a yellow, the original, it's been reissued. So I cannot remember if the cover's changed in the new, but the original, it's this great yellow convertible. And it just, I fought for the title. I begged for the cover. It's one of my favorite special edition packages. And the fact that it was the 50th book and that it was just, there are stories that just are fun from start to finish to write. Sometimes they, beat you to death with how difficult they are, but some of them for me are just sparkly and delightful. And that was one of those.
Where do your heroes fall on the scale between alpha males to cinnamon rolls? Rochelle, starting with you.
I think most of my heroes are alpha males.
Okay.
They're not overbearing, but they're strong. They're strong.
Susan.
Well, I think the definition of an alpha male has changed from, say, the 90s to now. But I think my guys are, they're definitely not overtly alpha males, but they are underneath. So, but I like to write about good guys who have a code. And so I don't know. I would say there's sort of, okay, there's the real man you marry, and then there's the fantasy version of him. That's who I write.
Yeah. Okay, Christine, you, alpha males or cinnamon rolls?
Well, there are a lot more cinnamon tasting than they used to be. But I always loved the alpha. I did love the alphas. I mean, when I started, and I had read Presents, I read where you have the real definite guy running the show. And I still like that a lot. I'd say I still like a guy who runs the show, but I do enjoy a guy who's going to figure out what's going on here and try to make it better.
Well, I think there is a power in not having to be in charge. It requires a certain level of confidence to have a partner who's an equal. And I also had a first marriage, and a stepson, and he told me once that his dad took him aside and said, "I know it seems on the surface that marrying an intelligent woman is a good thing, but let me tell you, it's trouble." So the guy who can handle that is the guy I want to write.
Right. I agree.
I noticed that there's a comment actually. What about an alpha man feeding your cinnamon rolls in bed?
That would work.
Feeding you.
He doesn't even have to be an alpha man. If he wants to bring me cinnamon rolls, I'm in.
Did you ever feel like quitting?
Never. I've picked a birth date where I think I will stop because I have 100,000 books to read. But I don't know if I'm ever going to stop writing because the ideas keep coming. And they come from everywhere. Maybe a news story, or I overhear someone talking about something, because I can be online in the supermarket and the ear is like, oh, and I'll turn around and talk, because our daughter says you'll talk to a flea. But I said, but that's how you engage people to find out things about them without appearing to be too nosy. It's just being inquisitive. But no, it takes, sometimes an idea will come to me and it'll mull around in my head for a couple of weeks. And then I start jotting down something. I said, I think I have something here. So, I always like to come up with something fresh, even though I've written tons of series. After a while, I get tired, and it's like these relatives that stay too long at your house and you just want to get rid of them. And you said, I think it's time for you to leave. And that's when I come up with something new. But no, I enjoy writing.
Well, when I started writing, I was incredibly driven, and not a surprise to you, I know. And I was still in college. And when it came to finals, I always made a chart of how much time I had in a day and how much I would study for each class based on when the final was. And I had to schedule my writing, and it was literally the last day before I stopped for finals. And I had an agent at the time. It didn't go well. She called and said a book had been rejected. And I was a brave little toaster. And I'm like, okay, thank you for calling. I gave myself a moment. And then I went back and I was actually writing. And then I took a break and I went and got the mail. And then there was a rejection, probably from Harlequin Presents, and in the mail. So I got two, and I just started sobbing. I was sobbing. And I thought, I am working so hard and I believe so much, and I didn't know what to do. And I thought, I'm just going to be done for the day. I'm going to be finished. But it was my last day of writing before finals. I started the final study, and I thought, if I don't go back and write, I will never go back and write. And so I went back, and the scene was they were having their first kiss. And I cried through the entire kiss because I was so sad about the rejections. That turned out to be the first book I sold. What if I had stopped? I would never have known. I would never have sold that book. And so to the unpublished writer, I say, you never know. And here's what I can tell you. If you stop writing, you will not be published. That I know for sure. So success comes to those who work hard. We all work really hard. There are incredibly gifted writers who will never sell a book because they won't write it, or they won't finish it, or they won't submit it, or they won't do the work to self-publish or whatever. Talent is really nice, but hard work is what sees you through.
That was the great thing about being an actress first. When they reject you as an actress, it was your body. It was you, you know. Being rejected as a writer was easier for me because that's just something I wrote. You know, I could put it over here. And I just wanted to do it. I realized I want to do this. Whatever happens, I want to do it. And I kept with that whenever things didn't go well.
It's like when you finish one, you got to start another one. You got to start another one. I mean, it's like me with Twizzlers. I just can't have one. Or gummy bears. I just can't have one. That's why I don't have them in the house, because I will eat them all up. And it's the same with writing. When I finish one book, I've got to start that next one.
Michelle, are any of your book characters after real people, or is it all in your head?
All in my head.
Okay.
All
Susan.
I have no real people.
The same. Real people don't plot well. So yeah, no. There might be an inspiration. Usually it's horror. But no, they're completely made up.
And Christine, would you agree with that? Or
I do, except I had one character in my first book, in my Temptation that I wrote, and it was my grandmother. And she, who is no longer with us on this plane of existence, but she was amazing. And I gave her the same name. Everything was the same. And people read it in the small town I was from, and my grandmother was there, and they would say, it's you, it's you, Sydney. And my grandmother said, it's a novel, so therefore it is not me.
How many books do you have going on in the works at any one time? Rochelle?
Right now it's two. It's two, but usually one at a time. I try to do one at a time. But if I'm doing a romance, then I would do a women's fiction, which is completely different for the head. I have to change the head. But no, I usually try to work on one at a time.
I try to write one at a time, but things will happen. Like I'll get revisions. It takes a long time to get in and out of a book. So I know people who work on one book in the morning and one in the afternoon. And that is beyond me. If I have to do something like brainstorm an idea or write a synopsis, I have to physically stop. And then the next day I can do the other thing and then physically stop and then go back.
I do. And both Rochelle and Susan said what I would say, which is I have to go in the book. I have to go in there, and getting in and out takes extra time. So if I can avoid having to think about another book, I will think about ideas or what story might work. If I have a break for a day for one reason or another. We're doing our this today, and so it freed me up a little bit, and I had some ideas for a book that I'm planning. But mostly, I got to be there, and that's an emotional, mental commitment. And if you pull me out, I got to go back there, and that's just one at a time.
Susan, Christine, Rochelle, thank you so much for being with us and for sharing your process and comments. Thank you to everyone who joined us. This will actually be available for people to rewatch and join. And I hope you all have a lovely evening. And remember that the books are out at the end of March and the end of April. And I hope you checked Discover the Books. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.